Hello. Welcome back to Video Facebook Live. My name is Monica, and today we have Dr. McDonald here.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
We will be discussing nutrition, specifically reading food labels, specifically nutrition labels. We have a PowerPoint here. I will let you take over.
All right, so, for me, I'm a gastroenterologist. I'm also a trained chef. I talk about nutrition a lot. So I have a weight management clinic where, we actually use this PowerPoint in our clinic. So the PowerPoint is really just getting to the basics of nutrition because most people are not taught anything about nutrition.
No.
Actually, most doctors aren't even taught anything about nutrition.
And that's surprising.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's surprising and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to do fellowships in nutrition. I had to go to cooking school just to really learn all the information that I have right now to get to the point where I can educate people. But if you think about it, in elementary school, junior high school, like when do you ever learn?
Not really. Like
Never.
maybe a little bit, of information, but just the basics. The food pyramid, for instance. But other than that, I don't think there's really anything else.
Yeah, I mean, and the food pyramid, we don't even recommend using the food pyramid anymore, which is why we're doing this session. So let's see, let's talk about some nutrition guidelines, just general stuff. So in general, it's always good to try to limit your calories overall. But ultimately, we know that all calories aren't created equal.
Right.
So even if you limit your calories, you can still have an unhealthy diet. So, for instance, I've seen someone in clinic who went on a Coca-Cola diet.
That doesn't even make sense.
I'm just telling what happened. So went on a Coca-Cola diet, and they wanted to limit their calories to 1,200 calories.
Okay.
But they were drinking nothing but 1,200 calories worth of Coca-Cola, and they thought they would lose weight. So they didn't end up losing weight, even though they were just taking in a lower amount of calories. And the reason for that is all calories ain't created equal. So some calories actually have an effect on your insulin levels, and when our insulin levels increase, insulin tells the body to store, certain calories and certain energy as fat, basically.
Right.
So even though she was on a calorie deficient diet, she was on a diet that promoted so much insulin release, she was still actually gaining weight.
Those weren't the right type of calories that we should be intaking.
They weren't the right type of calories.
Got it.
So she wasn't taking in any protein, obviously. And also not taking any fruits and vegetables, and she wasn't having any vitamins. I mean, it's really a quick way to develop malnutrition, if anything. Yet still not lose weight. So
does that go hand in hand? I see a lot of times on social media, the pictures, like the two pictures, and it'll be like a burger and then a bowl of fruit, and they'll say, they'll show the calorie difference, and let's say the bowl of fruit has more calories, let's just say.
Yeah.
But those are the good type of calories, so it's not always the amount of calories, but if they're good calories or bad calories, right?
Well, it is complicated when you talk about good calories and bad calories, because ultimately calorie is just a unit of measure.
Okay.
So you can't really assign good or bad to a calorie, but you can look at different food and see what other nutrients the food has to offer. Okay. So you want calories. You want to get calories from food that offers substance beyond just the calories itself.
Okay. So
case in point, your Coca-Cola, there's nothing in there except for sugar and then a whole bunch of random chemicals, phosphoric acid and a whole bunch of stuff. But there's literally nothing of any health for the human body in a can of Coke. Or most pop in general. I don't want to, just label
just
Coke. But most pop in general, it's just, sugar, water, and some carbonation. But when it comes to fruit, fruit has fiber, fruit has vitamins, minerals, has plant-based chemicals called phytochemicals, phytonutrients. So these are all the things that are associated with decreasing our risk of developing cancers, decreasing our risk of developing diabetes, and even some people who have diabetes, the fruit may have, healthy potassium and stuff like that may impact not only blood sugar levels, but specifically people with high blood pressure. Doing more fruits and vegetables can actually lower your blood pressure to a certain degree. I mean, it depends on how high the blood pressure is. So we tell people in general, always try to eat a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. And I say a wide variety because you want to get, each food offers a different nutrient profile.
Right.
So if you just eat broccoli, you're only going to get the nutrients that broccoli has.
Just from broccoli.
That's
right.
it. And and broccoli may not offer all the protein that you need, all the amino acids that you need, or even all the different vitamins that you need. But when you have foods of different colors, so a lot of those colors correspond to different chemicals and vitamins and nutrients within the food
that we need.
That you need. Yeah. So therefore, it's good to eat a variety of colors throughout the day. Here, we can go to the next slide.
So I just want to make sure that when buying food, when looking at nutrition facts, it's not always about looking at the calorie count.
Right.
That you're also looking for other health benefits, like you said, vitamins, or looking at the fats and the carbohydrates and all of that on the label. And we'll talk about the nutrition label and how to dissect it and all of that too.
And in general, like, I recommend buying food that doesn't really have labels. So when you think about like, you know, apple.
All natural, right.
There's no label on apple.
Right.
There's no label on most of your fresh fruits and vegetables. So we really want to get to the point where we're not relying solely with what's on the label.
Okay.
And we just have an understanding that there are fruits and vegetables that are healthy for us.
Right.
Now, obviously, we do eat processed foods. We eat prepared foods and packaged foods. So labels exist. So we need to have a conversation about how to actually read those labels.
Yes.
Did you ever learn how to read labels at any point in your life?
No, I think I always just looked at the label, looked at the calorie, which is interesting because that's always the biggest font on a nutrition label. It's always like the calories always the biggest. And then maybe looked at the fat, but mostly just calories. And most people they think just to focus on that because they're just calorie counting. They're not looking at everything else or the ingredients. I never look at ingredients.
So you should look at ingredients.
Right.
No, definitely. So we're going to go over how to read a label because I think it's important and it's a skill that, you know, most people have never been taught. So in my clinic, I see people who are, you know, lawyers and highly educated and people who may not have graduated from junior high school. And the same, you know, although there are differences in education exist, but, you know, each person doesn't really get this type of information. So when it comes to looking at labels, it's always best to look at what the serving size is. So a lot of people get tricked and they'll say like, oh, you know, this only has 230 calories in it.
But you're not looking at the serving size.
You're not looking at the serving size.
A lot of times we're assuming the whole package is the serving size.
Right. And it's not.
So we think the whole package has the 230 calories.
Right.
But really it's not.
So what typically happens, I've seen people, you know, say they love snacking on trail mix and they'll get a package of trail mix. And I'm like, oh, how many calories, you know, do you think is in trail mix? And they're just like, oh, it's 200 calories or so.
Right.
But then they'll show me the package. And I'm like, there's 200 calories per serving. So what do you normally do? I eat, you know,
half the bag,
or the whole bag.
Okay.
And, you know, there's 5 servings in the bag. So you're doing 1,000 calories of whatever, and you don't even realize it. And that's a common phenomenon. So it's common in, you know, snacks that we get like potato chips and trail mix is definitely a common culprit, but it's also common in drinks. Okay. So a lot of drinks that may come in a 16-ounce bottle, the serving size may be half the bottle. So people look at it and say, oh my goodness, it's only 140 calories. I'm good with this. But then they drink the whole thing and it's double that.
Right.
So really start looking at the serving size.
And the serving size is above the calories.
It's above the calories.
Okay.
Now, the biggest issue with serving size, it's complicated because most of the stuff is listed in grams. So, you know, some stuff is, you know, some stuff will be listed in, you know, cups and whatnot. But when it comes to the actual ingredients in terms of how much sugar and everything is in a certain material, it's all going to be listed in grams, which we're going to talk about how to interpret some of that stuff.
Please.
So obviously the next thing on the food label is going to be your calories.
Right.
It's good to, you know, look at the total fat, but in general, back in the 80s, everybody was concerned about fat, even the 80s and 90s. So for the most part, people really tried to go on a low-fat diet. And what happened with low-fat diets, these low-fat food products, all they did was decrease the fat and added more sugar. So in many ways, part of this low-fat, you know, the strategies to prevent or cause a low-fat diet, like part of that's some of the reasons why everybody gained a whole lot of weight throughout the 80s and the 90s.
Right, our sugar intake went up.
Our sugar intake went up dramatically in order to avoid fat. So I remember, you know, Snackwell cookies.
Right.
So Snapwell cookies were marketed as basically a cookie that is healthy for you because it's low in fat. So a lot of people were eating these cookies thinking like, oh, this is healthy.
It's a healthy cookie,
It's
right?
a healthy cookie. It's called Snapwell. And it was super duper high in carbohydrates. And all it was doing was making people gain weight. That's all it is.
I feel like I'm just being tricked all the time with the things that are marketed and advertised.
And that's why we're having this conversation.
Right.
Because there's some trickery going on. And I really want your followers to understand, or really just not be tricked.
Right.
So with fat, I think the most important thing nowadays is to really just look and see if whatever product you're looking at has trans fat.
Trans fat. Okay.
So trans fat is...
And not total fat.
Yeah.
So trans fat, okay.
Total fat is it's kind of important, but you really don't want trans fat in your diet. And there's actually cities where there's a trans fat ban. So in certain cities, like it's illegal to have a lot of stuff with a decent amount of trans fat.
What's considered too much trans fat? Like for this label, it says 0. So what would be like too high? 5?
You want no trans fat.
Okay, so we just want 0.
Yeah.
So if it has any type of trans fat, probably shouldn't be eating it?
Yeah, well, it's probably not the healthiest thing out there.
Okay.
So the next thing on the label, your cholesterol kind of goes along with fat. And for people who have high cholesterol, I mean, you definitely should look and see how much cholesterol and stuff if you're trying to lower your cholesterol, or people who have issues with triglycerides. But the next thing on the label is sodium. Sodium is super duper important. So for most people in America, it's very common to have high blood pressure.
Right.
I think almost like 1 in 3 Americans have high blood pressure. So most of high blood pressure is really driven by our diet, and it's really driven by taking in too much sodium.
And sodium is salt.
Sodium is salt.
Okay.
Yeah. So sodium is one part of salt. So salt is sodium chloride. Sodium is just the sodium portion of sodium chloride. But for the most part, the American Heart Association recommends that we only have about 2 grams, no more than 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day. So you can look at a food label and see what percentage of that 2,000 milligrams your food product takes up. So in this example, this is only takes up about 7%. So it's good to have an idea of how much you're taking in.
Okay.
Now, everybody wants to focus on carbohydrates.
Right.
So, nowadays everybody wants to lose weight. Everyone, is aware that reducing your carbohydrate intake may actually lead to some weight loss. And then you have people who want to do like the keto diet and all those different types of diets. So people are focusing on carbohydrates. But how do we interpret all this stuff? So I tell people to focus on their net carbs. So net carbs, all you have to do is look at the total carbohydrate intake, and then subtract the amount of fiber from
the percentage or the amount of grams?
The amount of grams. So the total grams of carbohydrates, and you subtract those total grams of fiber. And the reason why you do that, the fiber, you don't really absorb any of the fiber. So the fiber definitely counts as a carb, but it's a carb that you really don't absorb. And for most Americans, our diet is so low in fiber, and that's unhealthy. So we know that a diet high in fiber may decrease our risk of colon cancer, may also decrease the risk of heart disease. So you want to have some fiber in your diet. So I don't want people to be on a completely carb deficient diet because they're going to lose out on the fiber. So it's good to look at products and figure out what this net fiber level is. So
I'm sorry, in that equation one more time, you said we're looking at the carbohydrates and we're...
So total carbohydrates minus your dietary fiber.
Minus the,
That'll give you your net carbohydrate intake. So that's what you're going to actually absorb. So the next part you look at is really the sugars.
Sugar, yes.
So how much sugar is in food is super important to know about, primarily because, one, it puts us at risk for diabetes and also puts us at risk for weight gain. Now, the ultimate issue with food labels, everything is listed in grams. In the United States, we don't weigh ourselves with grams. Like, I don't know how much I weigh in kilograms. When I go outside and ask somebody what the temperature is, I don't want them to give it back to me in Celsius.
Right.
We don't use that. But for whatever reason, our food labels, that's what they use.
Yeah.
So I tell people a good way to figure out how much sugar is actually in something if you don't really understand grams is knowing that 4 grams is a teaspoon of sugar.
4 grams is 1 teaspoon.
4 grams is 1 teaspoon of sugar. And 4 grams is also a sugar cube worth of sugar.
Okay.
So when you start looking at these food labels, now you can figure out how many teaspoons are in there of sugar, or how many sugar cubes are in there. Okay. So your average can of pop may have 40 grams of sugar. You start doing the math, it's just like, man, that's like 10 teaspoons of sugar in there. And this little can of pop, and it's a lot of sugar.
It's not worth it.
So and then when you look at other food products, it's really kind of astonishing, basically.
Right.
Another thing that you should look at is, obviously it's good to look at the vitamin and mineral content and stuff like that. Most level food labels tend to be pretty low, so I want to get too caught up in that. Now, what's not on here is the ingredients. So one, you always want to look at protein too. So the average person, needs about a gram of protein per kilogram of weight. Which, for the most part, you're looking to 50 to 100 grams of protein per day.
Okay.
But another thing you really want to look at is the actual ingredients. So when it comes to ingredients, it's easy to get tricked by food labels. So when people look at the front of a box or the front of a package, they may say something's healthy, and they're really just doing that for marketing. They're not doing it because it's actually healthy. Right. They're trying to get you to buy it. And then when you look at the ingredients, it's just like, wait a minute, you said these, potato chips weren't potato chips, they were cauliflower chips. Right. But cauliflower is like the last thing that's listed
on the list.
And
Another trick.
So you really want to look at what's the first thing that's listed. So the thing that's listed first means it has the highest amount in whatever product that you're buying.
Right.
So the thing that's listed last has the least amount. So if someone's marketing you, some vegetable chips, and like the first 2 ingredients are like oil and some sort of preservative. Yeah. Like it's not, and the vegetable is like the last thing. It's probably not a real vegetable chip.
And what's funny? It just hit me that they actually advertise that way with pet food. Like with dog food, with cat food, that's like their thing. They always say, in the ingredients, the first 3 things, should be the actual chicken or wheat or whatever. Yeah. And everything else, that's just interesting that they never talk about that for people. Yeah. For us, we're not taught that, but that's how we should be buying for our pets.
Right. It goes both ways.
Right.
And I mean, the pet food industry, that's a whole separate another conversation. Here, let's go to the next slide.
Oh, wait, before we do, I just want to, so obviously when we go to the store and we're in a hurry, we're picking up things, we're not, going to be doing these long calculations for every single thing that we're picking up. What are the, let's say, 3 major things we should be looking at on a nutrition label?
Serving size. Calories.
Okay, calories.
Ideally, if you have high blood pressure, you need to look at sodium. If you're trying to lose weight, you definitely should look at the carbohydrate and sugar content. Okay. And it's good to get an idea of like how much fibers and stuff too. Okay. Because a lot of things are being marketed as high fiber, and then you look on the back and it's like 1 gram of fiber in there. Right. So there are some products, case in point, like whole wheat pasta. So whole wheat pasta at face value sounds super duper healthy.
It's supposed to be, right?
Yeah, but like the amount of fiber in there for your average whole wheat pasta, it's like barely a little bit more than regular pasta.
Wow, so the way they advertise it's so much better.
Right. But if you look on the food label, say for like a bean pasta, so they have black bean spaghetti and lentil pasta and chickpea pasta and whatnot. So looking at those labels, you're like, oh my God, it's like 11 grams of fiber in here compared to 3 grams of fiber in the whole wheat pasta. Okay. And you look at that, and then the whole wheat pasta doesn't really even have a whole lot of protein. Right. Whereas the bean pastas may have as much protein as a piece of salmon. But you only are going to get that information if you actually look at the labels and compare it to. So ultimately, I think what people should do is not only know how to read a label, but also not be afraid to compare stuff. And not just assume that something is healthy because they heard it on the internet or, it says it on the front of a package. So you really have to look at the back of it and be educated to decide for yourself.
And I think it would be a good tip or a trick before you go to the grocery store to do the research and like to Google the nutrition label of these things that you've been buying maybe for years and comparing it to other brands. So that when you go to the grocery store, it'll be easy just to find it. So you're not standing in the store for hours and hours trying to read things, calculate everything. So that might be.
And then, I mean, you don't really have to calculate anything. It's just good to be aware of the concept of the net carbohydrates.
Gotcha.
Okay. Let's check out the next slide.
Perfect.
Okay. So this is my plate.
I like this.
So once upon a time we had this food pyramid, and the food pyramid was a hot mess. I mean, it really was. Like, it was a pyramid, and you had different ingredients on the top, and it made no sense. Like, I'm a doctor. I can't even explain the food pyramid to you.
Really?
Because it made no sense.
Right.
It's like you need 2 to 3 servings of this, and then plus, part of the issue with the food pyramid, there were a lot of industries who were trying to get their food listed within the food pyramid.
Right.
So everybody lobbied to, make certain foods be higher up on the food pyramid or lower down on the food pyramid. So it was complicated.
Right.
What we did was, what the United States did in terms of the dietary guidelines, they got rid of the food pyramid and really recommended this whole My Plate. So My Plate is definitely a more realistic example of the way we should be eating. So for the average person, most of your plate should really be vegetables, and then your protein, and then maybe a little bit of grain and some fruits. And then technically, if you consider vegetables and fruits plants, half your plate should be foods that come from plants.
Okay.
So for people who aren't vegetarians, like, you should still really adopt mostly a plant-based diet. So most of your diet should be coming from plants, basically.
I do hear, or a phrase I've heard, that your plate should be very colorful.
It should be colorful.
Right.
And that's what I was saying before. You want to have you fruits and vegetables all the different colors.
Gotcha.
So if everything is green, you may be getting the same type of nutrients from all the green vegetables, basically.
Right.
But if you're doing, some green spinach and some, red pepper or some yellow pepper and some cauliflower, that means you're getting a wide variety of different nutrients. So your grains, should be on the smaller side of things. And for most people, grains or healthy grains would be, your brown rice, your quinoa, and some of the ancient grains that are starting to come back into style. I'd be careful with putting a whole bunch of white rice on there and pasta, primarily, especially if you're trying to lose weight.
Okay.
Because those are carbs that are easily digested, and plus they've just been associated with weight gain.
Okay, so no white rice, no pasta. Beans? Would that be in protein?
I don't want to say no,
but just not as.
Be careful.
Okay.
So it's not one of those things you want to do a lot of, and you probably shouldn't be doing it every single day.
Okay. Now beans, that would fall.
A protein.
Protein. Okay.
Yeah. So your proteins are going to be, beans. Obviously, any type of meat. Nuts can count as a protein. They have a decent source of protein. Things like Greek yogurt are high in protein. Cheese can be high in protein. Eggs.
Now, as far as starch, potatoes. I love potatoes.
Yeah.
Where that just shouldn't be on. Is that just not on here at all? Or I'm like,
well,
potatoes. Where does that fall?
Potatoes are complicated. So potatoes. Technically, potatoes are within the vegetable side of things.
Okay, I'm doing good then.
Yeah, but it's starchy, and the major issue with potatoes. There was a study that was done in New England Journal of Medicine where they looked at foods associated with weight gain. So they followed 120,000 people for about 20 years and had them write down everything that they're eating every day. We talked about it. So one of the foods that they found when people did them frequently that led to weight gain.
Please.
I'm just a messenger. So I'm just telling you what the study found. So they found that people who did potatoes consistently, potatoes in any form, so not just French fries, not just potato chips, but even like the baked potato, the boiled potato, etc. If done too frequently, it can potentially lead to increased weight gain. And that's just a fact.
Makes sense now.
Now, does that mean you should never have potato? No, I'm not saying that at all.
Just not often.
Just not all the time.
So we shouldn't be having fries every day, guys.
Exactly. So potatoes are a good source of potassium. There are some health benefits to having some potatoes, but the whole steak and potato diet that has characterized the average American diet is just not the healthiest way to go. And sweet potatoes are a healthier alternative, but sweet potatoes are still very starchy, and they also can be very high in carbs. So, like any food, there is, if you do it too much, it may have the potential to put on some weight, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to avoid it completely. You just need to be cognizant of what it can do to you.
Got it.
So, should you have fruits with every meal?
You can. So it also depends on what type of fruit you're eating. But in general, having fruits as part of your routine, that's a healthy diet. So fruits can have, those calories can add up. So I don't want you to think that you can eat as much fruit as you want without any repercussions, because at the end of the day, there is a lot of sugar and stuff in there. But fruits definitely shouldn't be avoided. So I see a lot of people who are just trying to, people with diabetes who are like, I don't eat fruit anymore because I have diabetes. Like, that is all wrong. And the endocrinology guidelines, the doctors who specialize in managing diabetes, like in their guidelines, they tell people you need to have a diet rich in fruits and vegetables. And then you have people avoiding that stuff. So healthy oils.
Healthy oils.
Yeah.
I've heard of that before.
So, that's like your salad dressing and olive oil and stuff like that. So there are some studies that indicate that olive oil may have some health benefits. So olive oil is just one part of the Mediterranean diet. It's the part of the Mediterranean diet that everybody wants to focus on. So everyone wants to say, oh, Mediterranean diet is nothing but olive oil. At the end of the day, the Mediterranean diet is rich in fruits and vegetables, and then also has some olive oil on top of it. And it's also low in red meat. So most of the meat in the Mediterranean diet is really, coming from fish and stuff like that. But it's just overall, even with the fish, it's just not a lot of it. It's still kind of closer to a plant-based diet. So there's definitely some health benefits to having some olive oil, and a lot of times people get excited about coconut oil as a healthy oil. And coconut oil can have some health benefits, but it is at a chemical level, it's very similar to butter at the end of the day. And even with these oils, recognize that oils have more calories in it than like any other food. So the oils are super duper calorie dense. So even olive oil, if done too much, it can, lead to or put somebody at risk for eating too many calories that they want to actually eat.
And olive oil is not the same as vegetable oil.
No, olive oil is definitely not the same as vegetable oil.
And if we were doing olive oil, it should be, I heard, an extra virgin.
Yeah, so
olive oil?
Cold pressed extra virgin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So extra virgin olive oil is the olive oil that's made for to be just consumed raw without cooking.
Okay.
Cooking olive oil may lead to some issues. It's really not the best oil to cook with, primarily because it starts to smoke at a lower temperature compared to other oils. So if you're trying to cook with oil, you want to really look for an oil that has a higher smoke point, because once your oil starts to burning the oil may actually lead to chemicals that actually can put us at risk for developing cancer. So you really don't want your oil to be burning all the time. So oils that have high smoke points that people should be aware of: grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil is good. Sunflower seed oil, safflower seed oil. These are oils that have higher smoke points and are healthier to cook with as a result. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So a lot of times when people are really focusing on their food and their pattern of eating, and I even like to use the word diet, because diet just has all these negative connotations.
Like a healthy lifestyle.
A healthy lifestyle. And, what we eat is our diet, you know what I mean? So diet does not necessarily have to be this weight loss thing. All it is our pattern of eating. So you want to have a healthy pattern of eating. And a lot of times people try to adopt a healthy pattern of eating because they're trying to lose weight. So it becomes a goal. When you're looking at setting goals for your diet, we tell people they should try to follow the SMART plan. And the SMART plan is really just an acronym. So it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So specific, if someone comes to my clinic and they're trying to lose weight, and we have to come up with a plan, and I say, well, what do you think you're going to do differently, or what do you think we should do differently? And if they just say, well, I'm just going to eat healthy, That's not specific.
Right. What does that mean?
What does that mean? So it's good to say, look, I'm not going to skip breakfast. I'm going to eat these meals on these days.
Right.
I'm going to not, get my French fries after work every day. So the more specific you can do, the easier it is to actually achieve whatever goal you're trying to set.
Right.
And you really want something that's measurable. So when someone says, I want to eat healthy, that's very hard to measure. But if someone says, I don't want to drink pop no more than once a week, you can keep track of how much pop you drink.
I like that.
So, set up goals that you can actually measure so you can hold yourself accountable. And you want to do things that's attainable. So, for instance, I'm an advocate of a plant-based vegetarian diet. And I'm definitely an advocate, if not that, a flexitarian diet where people are eating mostly fruits and vegetables, but they're flexible. So they may have, meat every now and again. And plenty of studies that have indicated that the flexitarian diet is also pretty healthy. But not everyone is ready to commit to jump right in. So for me as a doctor, if I just had people come into the clinic and just say go be a vegetarian and go about your business,
how long will that actually last?
Right, and for some people that's not immediately attainable.
Yeah.
So when it comes to setting goals, you really have to set yourself up for success. So identify goals that you feel are attainable. So a lot of times when I see people, a lot of the goals really come from them.
Yeah.
A lot of recommendations really come from them. I'm just feeding things back.
Right.
In the sense that, what do you think you can do? We have to make some changes. Like, what change are you willing to make? What change do you think you can do?
I heard a good tip or a good trick would be to almost take it week by week, each week at a time. So if you said maybe this week I'm not going to have any bread.
Yeah.
This week I'm not going to eat any meat.
Yeah.
Would you maybe suggest that to kind of ease people into it?
I mean, definitely.
As opposed to, hearing the word or keep telling yourself, I'm on a diet, and it just seems so long, and how long is this going to go on for, and you're tired. So just taking week by week.
Right. Everybody is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, the goal is to really find something that's sustainable.
Right.
So when people do a lot of these fad diets that they're just, feel miserable on, and
it can only last so long.
It can only last so long, and people, people may lose weight with a fad diet. Don't get me wrong, some of the fad diets, people have lost weight with
But
fad
a lot of times it comes right back.
But then
then more.
Majority of the times it comes right back, and then more.
Yeah.
I like what you said, and the studies show that. So when people have these yo-yo diets where you lose weight and then it comes back, but you may come back a little bit higher, and you lose weight again, it comes back. But a lot of times people are just going up and down, but overall, if you look at them over some years, they're just slowly gaining weight. So you really want to have a diet that's actually sustainable. And a lot of people ask me about fast and fasting. And, I saw one article about a water fast where people were just doing water for a week. And it's just that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
Especially with that, because, I don't want to say most women, but a lot of women, we have almost two separate closets. It's okay, this is kind of my skinny closet with, this, and then this is my bigger closet. So we should just, like you said, maintain, keep a consistent, healthy lifestyle, and not so it won't be such a yo-yo.
Right.
Just have one closet.
So the yo-yo process is definitely not where it's at, because it actually makes it harder to lose weight overall. Now, weight regain after losing weight, it's easy, primarily because once we start losing weight, our body interprets that weight loss as starvation. So the body, we have mechanisms that are ingrained within us that helps prevent starvation. So what happens is certain hormones are produced when we start losing weight, and those hormones actually increase our appetite. So people lose weight and they feel hungrier. So when it comes to sustainable diets that are associated with weight loss, it's really important that people not skip meals. Primarily because if you lose weight and you skip those meals, you have to understand that you have these hormones in you that are actually making you super duper hungry. So when it is time for you to eat, you may actually overeat because your body's already revved up to overeat. So it's important to be consistent, and it's also important to identify foods that actually may fill you up. So foods that are high in protein typically are a little bit more filling, and then foods that have a lot of fiber are a little more filling. And so those fiber foods are really fruits and vegetables. which is one of the reasons why making your plate half fruits and vegetables, you may actually lose more weight, even though it may look like your plate is more full. Because if you just eat some potatoes or just some steak, that's not very filling at the end of the day.
Oh, I heard. I'm so happy you're here because I want to know if it's true or if it's a myth.
Okay.
I heard that it helps to drink a glass of water before your meal.
Okay. Yeah.
To kind of, if you are trying to lose weight and all of that, so you're not maybe as hungry.
Right. So part of hunger is very complicated. So there's a lot of hormones involved in deciding, when we're hungry and also what we feel like when we're full. But one component of, feeling full is the stomach is literally full.
Yeah.
You fill it up. And even for me as a gastroenterologist, I do weight loss procedures. And one of the weight loss procedures we do is putting a balloon in the stomach and filling up with, sterile water. And the balloon takes up space in the stomach. And then eventually we take the balloon out.
Mm-hmm.
But the concept is the same.
Right.
So you really just want to fill the stomach up a little bit with something that's not going to have any calories. So water, it fills you up, and you may actually just eat a little bit less. And another good tip is eating slower. So in order for those mechanisms to kick in to tell your brain that you've had enough, it takes time. So it takes time for those hormones to be produced. It takes time for the hormones to get to your brain. And if you eat too fast, like your body, those safeguards won't have the opportunity to tell you to slow down. So you really just want to go slow. And
I tried that, and I took a break, and then came back, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not, I'm fine. But if I wouldn't have taken that break, I would have ate the whole thing, and I still would have been hungry like 20 minutes later.
So everyone calls that mindfulness.
Okay.
So mindfulness is really just eating mindfully and really trying to save your food.
Yeah.
So I tell people there's nothing wrong with appreciating good food, because food is delicious and food can make us feel good.
Yes.
But we should look at it as just like, man, this is really good, so I'm going to take my time with
savor
it
and
savor it. And you go to a foreign country, like you go to France or you go to Spain, like folks are just hanging out, like dinner is
eating
like
the same plate for 4 hours.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's
that
what people
makes sense.
do.
Yeah.
So you also want to have relevant goals.
Okay.
So if your goal is to lose weight and you're trying to figure out a change, that change has to be relevant to weight loss.
Okay.
So for instance, I'll see people in clinic and people will say like, well, I'm not going to drink coffee anymore. I'm like, well, were you putting a whole bunch of sugar in your coffee? No, not putting a whole bunch of sugar in coffee. And I'm like, well, coffee doesn't have anything to do with...
Right, it's stuff you're putting in the coffee.
Right, it's the stuff
all the flavors, the sugar,
You can drink your coffee. So why are you trying to give up the coffee? Like, that's not relevant to what your goal is. So it's always good just to make sure what you're doing makes sense. And that's what research and having a conversation with somebody comes into play. And you also want to have a realistic time setting. So, some people come in and say, I want to lose 40 pounds in a month. It's like, wait, that's not realistic.
Right.
Now, you can say 40 pounds, in a year, 2 years. Like, these are realistic numbers. So, for the most part, the average person, really only loses about a pound a week. But, if you consistently lose a pound per week, that's, 52 pounds in a year. That's a decent amount of weight loss over a year's time. And that's just 1 pound a week. And I think that's like a realistic goal, actually. Let's go to the next slide.
I do have a question. So when people are trying to lose weight and let's say they're working on all of that, is it true that like the first 5 pounds is says like water weight? Is that a thing?
I mean, people definitely gain weight with water weight, so to speak. But I think water weight is overrated in the average person. So the average person does not have heart failure. The average person does not have a condition known as lymphedema, where people are definitely holding on to a bunch of water. So, weight can fluctuate. So, you may get on the scale one day, and the next day you may be a pound heavier or a pound lighter. So those small differences typically can be attributed to water. But I tell people focusing on water weight is dangerous.
Okay.
Because if you don't have any conditions that put you at risk for retaining water, like heart failure,
then that's
just not what you need to focus on.
Gotcha.
Primarily because I've seen people trying to do water pills and diuretics for weight loss, and they end up getting kidney failure. And it was never really even water to begin with.
Right.
So just be careful with that. And ultimately you need water. So it's just like we're saying this is water weight, and then people are not drinking enough fluids because they don't want to have more water weight.
Right.
But actually staying hydrated helps you in the process of losing the weight.
Okay.
So you need the water.
Okay.
Okay? So we can't talk about food without talking about physical activity. And ultimately, for people interested in weight loss or weight maintenance even, a lot of our guidelines recommend that people get at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week.
Oh, per week, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I thought you were about to say a day. So.
No, man, 150 minutes a day.
A week, okay.
I have 3 kids and a dog.
Right.
Like I would not be able to get 150 minutes, but I still put my time in. But per week, at least 150 minutes.
Okay.
And that can be broken up, a couple different ways. Like it doesn't have to be, 30 minutes, 5 days a week. You can do 60 minutes here, 30 minutes there. So, as long as you're doing something, that is the goal. And with exercise, we always talk about, how much physical activity you should put in, but we don't talk about inactivity, and that's the flip side. So the flip side to exercise is trying to really not sit as much, because a lot of times when we sit all day long, and we all have jobs where
that's hard to do.
It's hard to do, but we need to be aware that sometimes sitting too long can actually counteract the benefits that we get from exercise.
Oh, wow.
So it's good to really try not to sit for more than an hour or so throughout the day, and get up and walk around. Even if you could walk around for like 5 minutes, like that 5 minutes has an impact. Let's check out the next slide.
I'm happy you said that. I didn't know, because we sit here for hours, at the office, and
It's good to walk around.
Yeah.
So for the most part, that's about it. I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything like that.
Are there any other questions? No, let's keep going.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh, okay. We did a lot. No, we covered a lot of things. I'm really happy that you explained the nutrition label, what are the key facts to look at, to do your research, to know what should be on your plate, what should we be eating, what should we not be eating. Is there anything you want to leave us with, an extra tip for a healthy lifestyle?
Eat fruits and vegetables.
Don't forget your fruits and vegetables. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know that sounds so simple, but when you start looking at our medical literature, like if you look at, diets that prevent, colon cancer, fruits and vegetables. Diets that decrease your risk of heart attack, fruits and vegetables. Diets that decrease your risk of high blood pressure, it's all fruits and vegetables. So, for folks who are like, I don't like my vegetables, I don't like my fruits, you need to figure out what you got to do.
Yeah. You better figure it out.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you can, check out my website if you need some help figuring it out.
Yes, and your website is?
TheDoc'sKitchen.com.
Nice. Love it. Thank you so much, Dr. McDonald, for coming and explaining everything to us. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to keep your plate nice and colorful, and don't forget your fruits and vegetables.
All right.
Until next time. Bye, guys.